Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video you will learn what are actions, action types, asynchronous actions and action creators inside Redux. So let's jump right into it. As we want to focus on actions, I already generated here a small project with installed Redux. So let's check this out. Here I generated a project with create React app. We have here an input and an add user button. When we're hitting add user, new user is generated. So let's check the code. This is the create React app. Inside source, first of all, we have index, and the most important line here is create store, which will generate a new store from Redux. And just for you to know, here we're using compose with DevTools to enable DevTools for Redux. Actually, this is not mandatory for you, and you can just provide here a reducer. Secondly, we should not forget here provider, just to give access to the store in every component. Here is our small reducer. So inside the initial state we have just empty array. This is the array of our users, and when we are adding new user we are just pushing it to the end. And now here inside app is our stateful component. So we have here a username and, as you saw on the screen, input button and UL for the list. So when we are typing something, this is plain React, we just change this state username. And then at some point we are clicking this add user, and here we are calling this prop dispatch, and we are passing inside our action. And actually we can use this construction just because here on the bottom we used connect from Redux. And here inside connect we are passing mapDispatchToProps to give access of Redux to our component. If some of the things here are not clear for you, I highly recommend you to check my previous video first. I already explained all that you can see here. But in this video we want to focus on action stuff. So once again, what is action inside Redux? So here you can see this props dispatch, and inside we have an object. This is exactly our action. And inside action, which is just a simple plain object, the mandatory field is type. Here inside this is just a simple string add user. And we can additionally pass here whatever information we want. In our case this is payload, just because I want to always name our actions consistent. So we have type where we have some string, and we have a payload where we are passing some data. So this is an action. The next important point is action creator. Actually, this is just a plain function which will return our action. So for example, here we can create an additional file a new action. And for this we can create new file actions.js and just create all our actions here. In our case, we have only single action add user. So here I can write export const add user, and we know that as a parameter here we need our username. And now what we want to do inside is return an object, because we are returning here our action. And here will be our type, add user, and here will be our payload, and here we are passing our username. So as you can see, this code is super simple. This is just plain JavaScript. So this is a function where we are passing inside the username and we are returning here an object. But this is really action creator, and this is a specific term for Redux. How we can use action creators inside our project? So I can just close this part, and here on the top I can write import, and here we want our add user function from, and here will be relative path to actions. So we imported here our add user function, and we can just use it here. So instead of this line, I will comment this out. We can write here this props dispatch, and in the same case here we're calling add user, and we're passing inside this state.username. And as you can see, actually we didn't do any magic. This is just a plain function which creates an action. But it makes a huge difference. Why? Because first of all, we moved our action outside of our file and we created it with action creators. And this gives us several possibilities. First of all, now we can everywhere import add user from our actions and use it like this. This is the first part. Secondly, we can use inside connect mapDispatchToProps. And I already made a video on mapDispatchToProps. If you missed that, I will link it here on the top also. But the main point is that here we can create mapDispatchToProps. So we want to get rid of dispatch inside our props. And here we can create mapDispatchToProps and pass inside, and this is just an object, the value, and our value will be addUser. So what is addUser? This is this function that we imported on the top. So actually inside mapDispatchToProps we are passing action creators, so the function that is returning back our action. Now here inside our addUser we can use new function from props. So now inside props we got a function addUser and we can pass inside our payload, so it will be this state username. And let's reload the page and type something here and click add, and as you can see it is working like previously. So as you can see we have action creators and they are not only for us, we can also use the sugar from React Redux to make our code simpler. And as you can see here, we didn't use dispatch, but just a method from the props. And this is much better because our component doesn't know anything regarding Redux or dispatch. This is just a method that can be passed from the parent. And to use it, we simply need to create mapDispatchToProps and pass our action creator inside. The next term that you need to know regarding actions is action type. So what is an action type? If we will jump inside our actions, here this part is actually action type, because this is the type of the action. And actually the idea is that we can write here whatever, but we want somehow to structure our application and be sure that this is scalable and supportable. This is why it is really popular approach to move all action types that we have to a separate file or split it between several files. So what we can do here is create new file and name it actiontypes.js. And now inside this file we simply export a lot of strings. So here I can write export const, and here we will have addUser equals addUser. And now we can just copy it like a lot of times and create here different action types for different actions, like add user, remove user, update user, if we are talking, for example, about users. But in our case, we just need to create a single action type, and this is add user. Now here on the top, we can import add user from, and here will be our file action types. And now instead of this type, we can write here add user. And now the question is why it is good. First of all, you can always do a mistake or typo when you are typing your string, which means in single place you wrote add user, then in other place you forgot to add one letter, then you have some problem because your action is not valid. And you won't have this problem with action types because you are writing these strings only in a single place, and then everywhere you are just using variables. For example, even in our small case, we can jump inside reducer, and here we also have the same action type. This means that here we could make an error. To avoid this, we can import here on the top add user from our file action types. And in this case, we can't make really an error because this is just a variable, and we will for sure get an error if we type this variable not correctly. Let's check that everything is working. So I'm jumping to the browser, typing something, everything is working as before. And actually we can open here Redux DevTools. I already made a video regarding DevTools. If you missed it, I will link it here on the top. This is extremely important to know. As you can see, here is our add user, and actually if we want, we can somehow also prefix it here, for example like auth/add user, and in this case it will be changed automatically everywhere. And the last topic for us here is of course asynchronous actions, and this is really complicated topic compared to previous topics. So what it is about? Actually, all actions inside Redux are synchronous, because this is just a plain JavaScript, and because inside our action creators here, as you can see, we're returning plain objects. And this is really nice architecture because we can subscribe to these changes and everything is working until we need to make some asynchronous operation. Because you simply can't write here asynchronous operation because you can't dispatch asynchronous operation. But of course we are working with APIs, we need to fetch data somehow. This means that we need this possibility. Actually, we can do it in several different ways, but I will show you the easiest and the most popular. It is called Redux thunk. Actually, its idea is that we're providing inside dispatch not an object, so not an action like normally, but a function. And this means that inside this function we can do whatever and even an asynchronous call. So first of all, we need to install additionally this library. This is why I will jump to the console and write yarn add redux thunk. And this will install locally this library. The next step is to jump to our index, so source, index.js, and here we want to apply this middleware. And actually Redux thunk is a middleware. And I already made a video regarding enhancers and middlewares. I will link it here also on the top if you are interested. So we need here to import, first of all, our Redux thunk. Or we can just write here that this is thunk middleware. And we're importing it from Redux thunk. So it is there and now we need to apply it. And actually to apply it we need to use an additional function from Redux which is called apply middleware. Now inside our compose with DevTools we need to write apply middleware and pass inside our new middleware and it will be thunk middleware. Why is that? Just to remind you, we are using apply middleware to convert a bunch of our middlewares to our enhancer. And we can pass inside our enhancer back with compose with DevTools in order to bring both of them inside our application. So if you are not using Redux DevTools, then you can simply remove this part and just write it like this, only apply middleware, and inside is going our thunk middleware. Now let's change our action creator. So as you saw here inside our actions, we're returning here just an object, which means this is a plain object for Redux. But in our case now we want to test asynchronous functions. This is why here we can create once again our add user, but here we are getting as username and we want here to return inside a function. This is why here I am writing that we are returning a function and here we will have only a single argument and this is dispatch. So you can see the difference. Here we returned the object and here I am returning inside our add user function, which is an action creator. I am returning one more function and here I have as a first argument dispatch. Now here I can write console log, for example, async action. And this is it for now. We won't use here dispatch, we will do it in a second. And actually I want here also to see username. Now we can jump back inside our app and use this function. And actually for mapDispatchToProps it doesn't matter if we're using asynchronous action creator or synchronous, because this is just a sugar and this is the same like this props dispatch and here is add user. Dispatch doesn't care that now this function returns a function. This is why here this props add user actually is a valid code, because here nothing is changed. This is just an action creator where inside we passed something, but this thing returns a function. And this function is going directly in this props dispatch. So actually we can write here this code and it will be exactly the same. Or I will comment it and use this props add user. Let's reload this page and check if it's working. So I'm typing something, add user. Of course, nothing was updated because we didn't make this update inside our action creator. But as you can see here in the console, we have here a log, async action, and here is our username, which actually means that we configured everything correctly, and here is our asynchronous action. Now the question is, what problem does it solve if we are passing back inside dispatch a function? Actually, as you see here, we have here a dispatch as a first argument, which means that we can just dispatch here our action like we did here. Actually, here we simply return an object, but here we can directly dispatch what we want. For example, here will be type add user, and this is actually an action type, and here is our payload, and this is a username. So actually this code will work exactly the same like this code previously. Let's reload the page and type something, and as you can see, everything is working. But now we are dispatching a function and not an object. This is important. Yes, this code works the same, but we can make it different. For example, here I can write set timeout just to emulate a synchronous call. And here inside we have a function with a delay, for example, 2 seconds, because we need 2 seconds to get something from API. And now I will move our dispatch inside set timeout. So I'm typing something, I'm hitting add user. Here you can see log, but information here was delayed. Why is that? Because here we have a set timeout. And actually this set timeout dispatches something after 2 seconds. So what is the idea? Normally we simply dispatch something and our action is there, and our parts of application can react for this change. But in the case when we want something asynchronous, we want to make it later. This is why we're dispatching a function, and inside this function we have some logic. For example, API call with fetch, then, and so on, or like here we have a set timeout to delay our call, which means actually on success we can dispatch an action, which means that we will update our state only after success happened. And this is extremely important because this is the only way how we can make with Redux asynchronous calls. But of course the example with set timeout is not cool and not realistic. This is why here I want to show you the real API call for real data. And as always, to emulate API calls, the easiest way is to use JSON API. So what is this? This is the JSON server where you can generate a fake API in a matter of seconds. So first of all, we need to install JSON server globally. I already did that. This is why I won't run this command. But npm install globally JSON server is enough. And now I can write JSON server ---- version. If you are getting such output, everything is good and we can start. The next point is that we are creating db.json file, and this is our database. In our case, I will jump directly in root of our project and create here db.json. And we only need here an object with a single key. This is users and this is an empty array. So we don't have any data, but this line is important because we want to create our users. And actually our API is ready. As you can see here, we can make post put page delete request, and this file will be automatically updated. Now we just need to start our JSON server. And as you can see here is the command --watch db.json. So here is --watch db.json, but as we're using create React app, it uses 3000 port. So here I wrote another port, so we won't have port collision. Here I will start JSON server. As you can see, we have a resource localhost 3004/users. So we can open it, and obviously this is an empty array. Now we can make a real post request to add our user to database. So here let's jump back inside our action creator, and let's instead of set timeout write real request. So what I want to do here, first I want to write async because I want to use here async await. Now inside we can make a post request by using fetch. So here back we are getting a response and we want to await fetch, and here will be our URL. So here is localhost 3004/users. And this is our URL of API, and we need to provide an object with some parameters for our request. First of all, here we can say that our method is post because we want to create a user. Secondly is our body, so we want to pass inside our username. But for fetch we need to use here JSON stringify and pass inside an object. In our case here we will have only a single property, username. And the last one is headers, because we want to make a JSON call. This is why here we need to say that content type equals application JSON. So this is it. This is typical fetch. It doesn't have anything to do with React or Redux. This is how we're using fetch to make API requests. And actually back we're getting our response. So to read some data, we need here data, and we can use await once again to read from our response the JSON. So at this moment we are sure that we got back data, which means we successfully created user. I will console log here data, and now I will dispatch an action, because at this moment I am sure that user was successfully saved. This is why here I am dispatching type, and our type is add user, and inside we have a payload, and it will be our username. So let's save this and check if it's working. Let's reload the page. As you can see, we don't have any errors. Here I will create user foo bar, and now I want to jump to network and clean everything and maybe even make it smaller. So let's hit add user, and as you can see, this is our request to localhost 3004/users, where we have our JSON server. And as you can see here on the bottom, we passed inside username foo bar. This is why in preview our user was created. So this is the response. So JSON server said that we successfully created user. This is its username, and here is the generated ID. And actually we can check our database. If I will open here db.json, you can see here our created user, which means everything is working and we successfully made a synchronous call. So here is a quick sum up what you learned. First of all, action is just an object with property type, which needs to be a string. Secondly is action creator. This is just a function that returns a plain object. Third is action type. This is just a string that we are moving out to reuse everywhere, and this is the type of our action. And last but not least is of course asynchronous actions, and we can directly pack them inside of action creators and reuse everywhere also. And the easiest way to write asynchronous actions is by using Redux thunk library. Also, if you want to improve your programming skills, I have a lot of advanced courses regarding different web technologies, and I will link them down in the description box below, so don't forget to check them out. And if you like this video and you want more content like this, don't forget to put thumbs up to support me and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in my next video.